Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be creating 5 cards using some beautiful pattern papers that were included in the SSS December 2022 card kit, which is called Joy to You and Yours. These are some really cute and adorable vintagey pattern papers perfect for your Christmas projects. Well, before we get started, I would really appreciate if you could take a minute to subscribe to my channel and make sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified each time I post a new video. The pattern papers that I'm using today are by the Prima Marketing's Candy Cane Lane collection, which are perfect for all your Christmas card projects. I have 8 double-sided sheets of pattern papers here with beautiful Christmas themed reindeers, Santas, Christmas trees, polka dots, and stripes. Well, there are some pattern papers where you find these small images which you could cut out to make your tags or embellish your card fronts or even, well, probably use it on your Christmas ornaments too. I also have beautiful backgrounds which would be perfect for your card fronts. I will be using most of these small images. I'll cut them out using just scissors, or even if you have some rectangle dies or tag dies, you could cut these out and use them as focal points for your cards. This polka dot design would be perfect for your card front. Here is another sheet where you have little images in the shape of tags, perfect for your tags during this holiday season. I love the quality and the design of these pattern papers. They are neither very heavy cardstock nor too light and flimsy. Also, the light, subtle pink color is really gorgeous. Next, we have the stamp set, which is Joy to You and Yours, which was also part of the kit. I will be using some of the sentiments from the stamp set. Well, let's begin with the first card. For this card, I will be cutting out all of these little tiny images using my paper trimmer. Here you see I have 9 little images which I can use as tags, or like I will be doing in my card, I will be adding little frames and embellishing it on my card front. I'm using this mini slimline cardstock by Cat Scrappiness. This mini slimline card measures 6 by 3.5 inches. I cut out this beautiful red starry background which will go as the main background for our card front. We can stick the little cutouts over this starry background. The best part about these tiny little cutouts is that they already have some little sentiments on them. For example, this one we have the Merry Christmas sentiment. I did cut out other tags from the other pattern papers. Here I have a tag which says 25, and also I will cut out another image which is this blurred out Christmas tree. I love the look of this Christmas tree on this pattern paper. To add some visual interest to our card, I decided to adhere these little tiny pieces of cardstock overlapping each other. Now, what's a Christmas card without some shine? So, I decided to mat all of these pieces on some gold cardstock, and I stuck the 25 tag and the Christmas tree tag using some double-sided tape and popped up the centerpiece which has the Merry Christmas sentiment on it using some foam tape. I love how easy and simple this card was to create. I'm not adding any additional embellishments on this card. Here's a closer look at my finished card. I love how this turned out. I think the best part about this card is the blurred out Christmas tree. Moving on to card number 2. Well, I wanted to keep this card very similar to the first card. So instead of popping up those little tiny images on gold cardstock, I used the remaining red colored starry background paper and mounted my little panels over them. Now I will mount all of these panels on an A2 size card front. Well, if you've watched my videos, you will know that I like to have a light border around my card. So this panel, I have cut it down slightly smaller than an A2 size card base. This now measures 4 by 5.25 inches. Instead of leaving my panel plain white, I decided to add some color and texture to our card panel. So for that, first I will be using my fir tree branches embossing folder and running it through my die cutting machine. Well, here I'm using a 100-pound white cardstock, so I did not spray my cardstock with water. But I would definitely recommend, if you're going to use a heavier weight cardstock, I would recommend using a light mist of water just so that your panel does not crack when you run it through your embossing folder. Now here's the beautiful texture that I get on this card front. Well, if I wasn't using pattern papers for my projects today, I would just add a sentiment strip and call this card done. But well, let's add some color to our card. The best part about having a card kit is that all the components in the card kit complement and coordinate well with each other. Now, to color this panel, I didn't have to think a lot. I just used the mini Lumberjack Plaid Distress ink cube that was part of the kit, and I colored this panel. Now, to add color to the panel, all I did was I swiped the ink over the raised pattern. There are so many ways you could add color to your panel. You could ink blend the panel using your blending brushes. You could just use one color or a variety of different colors. Another way to ink up your panels is add ink to your embossing folder and then place the paper over it and run it through the die cutting machine. And the easiest way, which I feel, is just swiping your ink pad lightly, very gently over the raised embossed images. Now, this look does give a very rough, vintagey look to our panel, which is exactly what I wanted for my card today. Note that here we are not looking for perfection. I wanted a very subtle, vintagey look for my card, so I am randomly applying ink only to the raised areas of my panel. Well, you'll also see some of the flatter areas on the edge get the color, but I'm fine with that. Next, once I'm done with the coloring, adhered the panel onto a red card base, and then using some foam tape, I adhered those small little panels onto my card front. Here's a look at both the cards. These are very similar cards where we use those small little cutouts to create our card fronts. I have not added any sentiment strips here or any kind of embellishments. I love the texture, the glitter, the gold border on both these cards. Moving on to card number 3, I will be cutting out this panel of cardstock to be slightly smaller than an A2 size card base. This panel measures 4 by 5 1 quarter. All I'll be doing here is stamping a sentiment, and we can call this card done. Well, to stamp my sentiment, I used the Joy to You and Your stamp set, and well, take a look at all those beautiful sentiments on the stamp set. I was really confused on which one I should be using. Initially, I thought I would go with this Joy to You and Yours stamp, but I didn't want to crowd my panel and I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So instead, I went with the Holiday Wishes stamp. Now, I wanted to gold heat emboss the stamp on my panel. So, first, what I'll do is, this is one step that I make sure I never forget, is to use my anti-static powder tool. Now, this powder tool is by Cat Scrappiness and it's really amazing. I don't have to deal with those messy powder bags. Once I run the anti-static powder tool through my panel, I will use VersaMark ink and I can now stamp this image. Well, it was really difficult to see if the image was stamped properly, so I just didn't want to take any chance and I stamped it twice and used the Simon Says Stamp gold embossing powder and heat set it. Now this panel is a little lightweight, so make sure that you run your heat gun throughout the panel and not concentrate or focus it at one area. Well, initially I had thought that I would keep this panel as simple as possible, just add my sentiment and call this card done. But well, it's Christmas, why not add some color and shine to our card? I wanted to give it a more vintagey look, so I used the Lumberjack Plaid Distress ink and just added some color on the edges of the card panel. And for shine and glitter, I thought of adding some splatters, gold splatters, which would match with my gold heat embossed sentiment. I just took some paint on my brush and randomly tapped it all around the panel, making sure that I didn't have lots of water droplets on my panel, and it most of it did not touch my sentiment. Also, to add some texture and character to this, I added the gold along the edges of the card panel. Once all of that metallic watercolor was completely dried up, I used some foam tape and adhered it onto a top folding red color note card. I love how simple and elegant this card turned out. Moving on to the next card, I kept this card again very simple and I cut this panel with this cute little reindeer. This one measures 5.5 by 3.5. Now I will have borders on both of the sides and not on the top and bottom. Now to mat my card, I decided to add some silver strips. Now all along we had gold strips, gold splatters. Let's add something silver. Using some double-sided tape, I adhered this onto a top folding red note card. But well, my note card was slightly bigger than my pattern paper, so I just went ahead and trimmed it. For my sentiment, again, I will be using the Holiday Wishes sentiment, but instead of heat embossing or using any black ink, I decided to use my distress ink. Here I'm using the Lumberjack Plaid Distress ink and stamped it twice using this ink, and I love how this matches perfectly with my red card base. You could add some sequences to embellish your card front, but I wanted to keep it as simple as I could. Moving on to card number 5. Here we have two panels. I love the stripes with the red and the blue, and this little panel with Santa and the reindeer. Again, I use some gold cardstock to mat both of these pattern papers. Now I will be placing both of these pattern papers onto a top folding red color note card, but instead of just using the traditional way of placing these papers straight on the card panel, I decided to align it diagonally just to create some visual interest. The striped panel, I adhered it onto the note card using some double-sided tape. Well, for the Santa, I used some foam tape. All we have to do is maybe add a sentiment strip or a label. Here I used "Wishing You a Joyful Christmas" sentiment and stamped it using the same Lumberjack Plaid distressing. Well, for this card, I decided to add some sequence. So here I have the gold hologram sequence by This Calls for Confetti, and using my Belly Art glue, I adhered the sequences at random places onto my card front. I like to pour out my sequences on this triangle tray by Cat Scrappiness. It perfectly holds all of them. And I use my jewel picker to pick up these sequences to put over my card front. Here's a look at my finished card. I love how simple and elegant this card looks, and I love the shine the sequin gives on this card. Here's a look at all the 5 cards that we created using the Candy Cane Lane Collection pattern papers, which was part of my Simon Says December 2022 card kit. I love how beautiful, elegant, and simple these cards were to create. I had 8 double-sided sheets of pattern paper, and after all these cards that I created, I have lots more remaining for me to create more cards. Well, I had so much fun creating these cards, and I hope you had fun watching today's video. All the supplies that I used to create these cards will be linked down in the description box below. I would love for you to become a subscriber to my channel, and if you do subscribe or are already a subscriber, please make sure to hit the bell icon so that you don't miss the next time I post. Hit the like button and let me know in the comments down below if you have any ideas or suggestions. Also, if you'd like to share your creations, please tag me on my Instagram at rp_shutterbug. There's a link to that in the description box below. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.